Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and we are finally doing our characters tier list for Twisted Metal 2012. So let's get right into it. In case you guys didn't know, I was not able to ever record gameplay for Twisted Metal 2012 until this week. I finally got a PS3, I got the game disc, and I've been able to make gameplay and do some streams on 2012 as well, and it's been amazing. I've been basically reliving my childhood one step at a time, and I figured this was the best time to finally come back and make the two tier lists that I have not been able to make until now, which were the characters tier list, and I'm also going to be doing the levels tier list of 2012 in the near future. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. That being said, we're going to start from left to right. I did not make this tier list myself. This is straight from Tiermaker's website, but I will have a link in the description below if you want to go make your own version of this tier list and post it in the community Discord. Starting out with Wagon. Now, this is a brand new character to the Twisted Metal franchise, and to be completely honest with you guys, I really like them. I think they're a really cool design. They clearly are an inspiration from Ozone in Rogue Trip, which was on the PlayStation 1, and it was made by the same guys who made Twisted Metal 2 and of course Twisted Metal 2012. And it's pretty cool that they took the inspiration from there and brought a character over from Rogue Trip, and I love the design of Wagon. I like the idea of them, and it's, you know, their special weapon is really decent. I mean, even if you don't use the second evolution of them, and by the way, every character in 2012 has 2 evolutions, some of them even have 3 of their special weapons. There's different versions, and I'm going to be putting them both together essentially in their tier list here, or taking them into account. So this will not be based off just the regular special weapon that you get right off default. You can hit triangle and switch between the two, so they are ready to go and there's no secret involved there. But with Wagon, you can either use his special regularly, where the AI takes over and it kind of homes in on the opponent a little bit. It's pretty accurate, and it does a really good amount of damage. But if you use the second evolution of his special, you can control the gurney itself and do a massive amount of damage if you get a direct hit. The only downside to that, of course, is you're leaving your car open to the elements at that point, so you could get killed while you're not even driving the vehicle. When it comes to the other stats of Wagon, they're pretty sluggish and slow in terms of their handling and their speed, but they do have decent armor. So it's kind of one of those give or takes. Do you want a strong special weapon and good armor, but you kind of lose that ability to maneuver quickly and get away from trouble? It's really up to you. I personally really enjoy playing as Wagon. They are a really good contender for that go-to vehicle if you just want to have a decent time. They're just that vehicle you want to go to for a first-time player. You know, they're really easy to pick up and play, and they're a lot of fun to play as. So for me, Wagon is an A-tier character. I also should start out and say that I'm going to be keeping my rule that I've been doing with my level tier lists, where from now on I will only allow one character to be in the prestigious S tier. So we're going to keep that in mind, and I know some people in the comments are going to be upset. These are not characters. These are the vehicles of Twisted Metal. Why are you ranking them as characters? Because, like I've stated before, the vehicles are just as much of a character as the people driving them. And the fact that in Twisted Metal you never get out of the car anyway, in my opinion, the vehicles are more of a character than the people are. So in 2012, as you guys may or may not know, each vehicle does not have their specific character driving them. It's faction based. So you could have Sweet Tooth essentially driving Axel, which just looks really weird and wonky, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's why I'm saying that these vehicles are more characters than not. On to number 2, which is Outlaw here. And Outlaw, they're basically, in my opinion, the better version of Outlaw from Black. They have brought back the exact same design, the same special, but the cool thing is you can switch between 2 different versions of their turret. So their turret comes out of the top, and it will automatically aim at anybody who's in proximity of you and do quite a bit of damage without much issue or really missing any shots. It's pretty accurate and it's easy to use. But if you want to switch to a more precise shot and be able to shoot extra missiles like you could in Twisted Metal Black, you can do that, but you lose the ability to aim behind you, and it's way less accurate. So again, kind of a risk and reward situation, but you can do a lot more damage with your special. It's kind of fun to switch between the two for whatever you need in its use case. On top of that, Outlaw feels pretty quick in this game in terms of their speed. They are definitely faster than Wagon, and their handling isn't too bad either. They're pretty much middle of the road, like 50% handling, 50% speed, but their armor is around 80% for me. I mean, they are a very strong vehicle. Again, really decent special, really good armor, pretty fast car, very good handling. Yeah, you know where I'm going here. Outlaw is definitely an A-tier vehicle. Next up is Reaper, aka Mr. Grimm. This is a wild card in 2012, and in my opinion, the definitive definition of glass cannon. They are by far the weakest car in the game. I mean, they can literally take only 90 hits of damage before they die. And they're also, the funny thing is, they're not even the fastest car in the game this time either. They're fast, trust me, they have really good handling, but the biggest thing about Mr. Grimm / Reaper to choose them is their special weapon. My god, their special weapon. They do have 2 different versions, but technically 3. The first version is a chainsaw. You throw it just like any other Mr. Grimm special, it only goes in a straight path and it does a pretty good amount of damage if you get a direct hit. It also has a second version of the chainsaw where if you lean back, you can grind it on the ground, it'll light on fire, which will end up doing literally triple the amount of damage. It is insane. You can one-shot certain characters in this game with his special weapon. It is that strong. And then the third evolution or third different special he has is he can actually take out an RPG. Now, the major downside of using the RPG is you have to stay in place and it's not extremely accurate. It also doesn't do as much damage as just using the flaming chainsaw, so that seems to be the one most people and myself go with. But yeah, he is a lot of fun to play in this game. Yes, it's a very high risk and reward character because you have little to no armor at all. You're not super duper fast. I mean, you are quicker than most characters, but still, you're going to get outrun by Kamikaze or Crimson Fury any day of the week. That being said, his special weapon alone makes him a force to be reckoned with at the least. And even though I really like playing as Reaper in this game for certain situations, and again, his special weapon is amazing, the fact that his armor is so weak and he's not even the fastest character in the game anymore, I'm going to have to lower him down to a B tier rating. I know some people are going to get really mad at me for that because this is probably their favorite car in the game, but I got to rate this fairly based off the stats and how they play in my opinion. So B rank it is. Next up is Roadboat. This is another brand new character in the Twisted Metal series, and this one is definitely a disappointment in a lot of ways. Roadboat could have been so much more, and I think that's why a lot of people are disappointed in it, including myself. Their special weapon is a really cool idea. The regular special weapon feels a lot like Roadkill's special in like TM2, where it doesn't really boomerang, at least not that I know of, but it's just kind of like a little bit of homing properties. It shoots out straight and it does a little bit of damage if you get a direct hit. It's not that great. However, if you switch to his secondary special is where he really shines, but still not to where he should be. So he turns into a giant magnet, which he can suck vehicles into the front of the car. They get stuck to you, and you can either A, ram them into a wall for extra damage, or just send them flying. So for on levels where you can fall off the level, he's really important there, and it makes it a lot of fun just for throwing people over the edge. However, the special weapon itself is just very weak, no matter which way you use it. Whether you're using the regular version where you can just do a direct hit with it, or if you pick somebody up and slam them against a wall, or send them flying. Either way, it doesn't do that much damage compared to 90% of the other cars in the game, so his special in a lot of ways is kind of useless most of the time. And on top of that, his handling is probably one of the worst in the game, which is really sad to say. He literally feels like a boat. Is the best way to describe it. And Roadboat, he lives up to his name. He's very sluggish, he slides everywhere like he's just constantly on ice, and he's not very fast. He is essentially just really not fun to play as at all. So I have to say, Roadboat to me is trash tier. I really would love to have seen him higher. I think I would have given him more points if his special weapon wasn't just meh. Next up is Roadkill. This is probably the most unique version of Roadkill we've seen. He looks very different from previous games. Honestly, not a huge fan of his design in this game here, but that being said, playing as him, he's a lot of fun. He and Death Warrant are essentially the same vehicle, and I do feel like they got a little lazy when it comes to the creativity of their special weapons, because literally both Death Warrant in this game and Roadkill have the same ability to charge up a second ability of their special to where they can shoot zoomy missiles or blood missiles, quote unquote, alongside their Gatling gun to do extra damage. If you know how to do it, it does deal a lot of extra damage and it's a lot of fun to use, but I don't really see much of a difference between Roadkill and Death Warrant in this game, and that is a bummer. I'd say Roadkill has a little bit more armor than Death Warrant, but he also is a little bit more sluggish in his handling and a little slower. However, his special weapon does do a little bit extra damage if you do it right with those zoomy missiles, so I have to give him a little leg up over Death Warrant, at least in my opinion. So for me, Roadkill is going to be a B tier character. The reason he's not an A tier is because for me, I just think he gets knocked down a little bit that he has the same special weapon as somebody else in the game. Also, again, his handling isn't that great. His speed is just okay. He's not super quick, but his special weapon is decent. It does decent amount of damage, but there is a learning curve to it, and it's not super easy to get used to. But once you do, yeah, he is fun to play. But again, I'm going to leave him in the B tier category. Next up is Shadow. This is another case of a vehicle that they just didn't get too creative with because they literally are a carbon copy of Wagon. However, they are a little worse than Wagon, essentially. It's the same special weapon. They send a person in a gurney, essentially, out of the back of the car, but towards anybody, and it homes in a little bit. But the difference with Shadows is theirs doesn't home in on the character. It just goes straight like it did in TM2 and Head On, you name it, and you can detonate it at will to do a little bit of damage. But even if you get a direct hit, it still doesn't do as much damage as Wagon's special, and his also homes in on the character. So when I'm playing Shadow, I always have that feeling of like, why am I not playing Wagon? He's just a better version of the same car. The other thing though too is I do love the design of Shadow in this game. I think the hearse looks really good. I like the look of it. They feel the same as Wagon in terms of their handling and their speed are pretty much medium, not super sluggish, but not super good either. And their speed again is pretty much middle of the road. They're not fast, they're not slow. They're just okay. I will say I think their armor is a little tougher than Wagon's, at least in my opinion. It feels that way. So yeah, if it was armor based, I would have to give Shadow a little bit of a leg up. But because their special weapon is a little weaker than Wagon's, and again, they're relatively the exact same vehicle, just with a better design in my opinion, I sadly will have to put Shadow in the B tier category. Still really good, don't get me wrong. I still like playing as them, but I just prefer Wagon. I will say really quick as well, because I know people are going to comment on it, the second version of Shadow Special is different from Wagon's, where you don't control the character when you shoot it out. Instead, it turns into like a lob where you can actually just throw the coffin at somebody, and it lands in one designated area and explodes, doing like a blast damage, essentially, kind of like a napalm, if you will. So it's okay. It doesn't do that much damage, though, even if you get a direct hit, again, compared to Wagon. So I still keep him in the B tier, but I just wanted to say that yes, he does have a different special, technically. Next up is Sweet Tooth, and this is probably the most crazy version of Sweet Tooth we've ever seen. And yes, that is including Twisted Metal Black. As you guys remember, in TM Black, they introduced the mech, where essentially his car, his ice cream truck, transformed into this giant Gatling gun that would shoot a ton of fire missiles at once. It looked amazing, it felt amazing to use, and he was a lot of fun. I can't sadly say the same for Sweet Tooth in Twisted Metal 2012. They just went way over the top with the mech stuff. He literally turns into a transformer. He's got legs now. He can run as a transformer. He can fly as a transformer, literally fly around the map. And his special weapon is the same as TM2. He basically just throws the head and it laughs, and it's got the purple mist, and it does a decent amount of damage if you get a direct hit, but it's still nothing amazing. And even in the mech version, when you're flying, you do get a couple extra versions of his special. You can do like a ground slam to do some wave damage and stuff like that, and crowd control, but still not that amazing in terms of damage output. His biggest benefit is his armor. Sweet Tooth can take a lot of hits and not go down easily. So even though he's very sluggish with his handling and he's pretty slow in terms of his speed, he does make up a lot of it with his ability to get away from danger by flying away in his mech version, and of course being able to take a lot of hits with a lot of armor. However, again, I just, for me, they went too over the top with Sweet Tooth this game. He's not very fun to play. Even when he's in his mech form, the controls are a little bit wonky with flying around and stuff, and that's really the only benefit, is he can fly. It doesn't really help you most of the time, and people can freeze you out of the air just like Talon. So for me, Sweet Tooth is a C tier character in 2012, which is a bummer to say. I wish he would have been a lot better like he was in Twisted Metal Black, but yeah, just is what it is. Next up is Talon. This is the very first playable helicopter in Twisted Metal, and it probably should be the last. I feel bad saying this because I applaud them for being creative. I know I kind of gave them shit earlier for not being creative with certain characters. And this time, they just went overboard with the creativity, just like Sweet Tooth. And I get it. They wanted to bring back Warthog. That was a failed concept for Black, but they just ended up not doing it here. Talon just doesn't look very cool or menacing. It looks like a tiny little commuter helicopter with guns on it. His special weapon is fun to use, I will admit that. It's a Gatling gun, and it does let you control the vehicle while you're also locked onto enemies and shooting them with a rapid amount of bullets, and that is really cool. And his secondary special lets you pick up people kind of like Roadboat and throw them off ledges or drop them from high heights to do a little bit more damage. His special weapon isn't that amazing though. I mean, it should have done a little bit more damage in my opinion, or at least been a little bit easier to control while in it. Also, his armor, of course, is pretty terrible. I think he almost has the same amount as Grimm, maybe a little bit extra armor. He's super easy to hit out of the sky and to freeze, and when you get frozen as Talon, it lasts twice as long as a regular character, keeping you on the ground as an easy target. So playing as Talon in multiplayer scenarios is basically useless, and he's just garbage. So the only thing that I can give Talon as a redeeming quality, again, is his special weapon is pretty decent, it's fun to use, and he is pretty quick. If you are maneuverable with him and you get used to him, you can get out of sticky situations pretty easily, which is nice, and again, it's unique and different. Because of their added creativity, I'm going to give him a little bit of leg up, but he still is a D tier character. He is definitely not my go-to character, and especially not for a first-time player. Next up is Vermin. This is another brand new character to the Twisted Metal series, and I really like Vermin. I think they're a cool, unique design. It kind of reminds me of an upgraded version of Goggle Eyes that we would have gotten from TM4, and I like that their special weapon lets you guide the missile, just like, essentially, meat wagons, but this time you can actually fly. Now, the controls are a little bit much to be desired. They're pretty bad, and it's kind of tough to hit people, but it makes sense, because if you do get a direct hit while steering the missile, you get a ton of damage. It's almost like hitting somebody with a Grimm special. It's pretty damn strong. And of course, if you don't want to control the special, your other version of it is just to shoot it normally. It'll home in on the enemy pretty accurately and do a decent amount of damage. It's a little bit less than meat wagons if you're just using it normally without controlling it yourself, but the benefit of Vermin is his armor. He can take an insane amount of bullets without much issue. He's also not super slow either. He's definitely slower compared to cars like Meat Wagon or cars like Outlaw. He is a little bit slower and more sluggish, but that armor definitely makes up for it. And again, the special weapon's super easy to use. It's really accurate, does a decent amount of damage, and if you are wanting to be a little bit more adventurous, you can control it yourself and do an insane amount of damage. So for me, Vermin is definitely an A tier character. The only thing keeping him down for me is I'm not a huge fan of his sluggish handling and his lack of speed. Next is Warthog, and Warthog has become infamous because of how insanely difficult he is to unlock in this game. There's no cheat code for him, there's no Game Shark code, at least as of today. There is no way to get him except for beating the entire story mode on the hardest difficulty in the game and getting gold medals on every single level. Yes, it sounds as insane as it is. Yes, you get a trophy for doing it if you're an achievement hunter, but this is the only way to unlock a character in the game, which is just asinine to me. Makes no sense. Absolutely insane. But once you go through the hell of doing that and you do unlock Warthog, it's sad to say he is just not worth it. He's not bad, at least in my opinion. I know a lot of people hate on him, and I think the stigma is mostly because of how difficult he is to unlock, and he's just a big downer. He's not that amazing. So Warthog is okay. I honestly think he's better than the Twisted Metal Black version of Warthog, at least in terms of his special weapon. It's unique, it's different, it's not the flamethrower this time around. It's kind of like Axel's in a way, where you kind of lean back on your back wheels, or treads, whatever you want to call them, you run over characters and you do a lot of damage, kind of like Hammerhead mixed with Axel. It's really unique, it's kind of interesting, I just wish it did more damage. You can also do a shockwave special effect if you if you switch it to the second mode and slam on the ground, again, just like Axel. The creativity is there, I'll give him that. I'm glad they brought back the design of Warthog from TM Black, because I think that is honestly my favorite design of any car in any TM game, next to Axel. He just looks super cool, super badass. I just wish it wasn't a bitch to unlock. That being said, if I was to rank it just strictly off the car itself, not based off how much I hate it because of what I had to go through to unlock him, I would probably put Warthog in the C tier. His special weapon is unique and different, but it just does not do much damage. He's very sluggish and he's pretty damn slow. The only real benefit of playing as him is he can take a lot of hits. He has really good armor. So yeah, kind of like Sweet Tooth, the only benefit for him is his armor, so I'm going to have to put him in C tier. And next up is Axel, which was kind of an ironic twist as well, where Axel, when the game first came out, I remember this, you had to pre-order 2012 in order to even get him as a character. That was the only way to receive him. And then, I don't know, like a week after release, they just decided to give it to everybody. I don't remember what the point was of making it a pre-order bonus. Maybe you just got to play him a week early. I don't really know, but Axel now is with every version of the game, and he is okay. But I will say this is probably my favorite version of Axel in terms of mobility and his handling and his speed. He feels extremely fast. You can get away from people really easily. However, obviously he's Axel, so he's open to the elements, and he's going to pretty much have bad armor. And in this game, his armor is not that good. And ironically, Axel's never really been known for bad armor in really any of the Twisted Metal games. So this is like the first time where they really just said, you know what? He's open to the elements, he can't take a lot of hits, so he's going to have weak armor. So yeah, not the best armor here. His special weapon also is a lot to be desired. He has two versions. He has the regular shockwave that we've all kind of know and love, but it's very weak this time around, and it doesn't really send people flying like I would like. So it's definitely a low tier version of the special. However, the other version, which is the better version in my opinion, is where the wheels come together. They hide him in it, so he can't actually take hits anymore. He's way more protected. And it turns into spikes around the wheels where he can grind up on top of vehicles like Hammerhead and go flying off of them, essentially. So not only can you do damage to somebody, but you can get out of danger really quickly. And it's just fun to maneuver around people with Axel. He's a lot of fun to play as. So it's one of those things where, yes, he is fun to play as, but in practicality, he is on the weaker side of vehicles. So for me, I'm going to have to put Axel down in the B tier, because even though I like his maneuverability and his speed, his specials, plural, are just a lot to be desired, and I don't like that they took away a lot of his armor. Next up is Crimson Fury. Both with Crimson Fury and with Kamikaze, which we'll get to later, I have kind of the same feelings with. I'm really happy they brought Crimson Fury back, though. I gotta say that. I'm happy to see him return to the franchise. I love the design of his character. I think he looks amazing. He plays really well. I like the speed. I like the handling. He feels really good. But that's really it. Obviously, because he's a sports car, he's going to have low armor. I wouldn't really dock him because of that. Because if you've seen my other tier lists, you would know that I really love characters like Spectre, who have obviously low armor, but they're very quick and they're fun to handle, and they have usually a pretty decent special weapon. But that's the biggest thing with Crimson Fury in this game that I do not like. Him and Kamikaze, again, relatively have the same special weapon. They both have a flamethrower, for their main first version, I should say, of their special weapon. And the flamethrower is decent. It's not terrible, but it's just meh. And when you're a really fast car like this, having a flamethrower just doesn't seem like it makes sense. You should have some type of special weapon that you can use from a distance. And Crimson Fury's other version of his special weapon is like a shockwave, which is a fire shockwave like Axel's from TM4. It's cool, and you can use it to your advantage if you're quick and you can get out of situations fast, but it doesn't do nearly as much damage as it should, because these characters should kind of act like glass cannons where they have really strong specials, but they have extremely weak armor. And you just don't get that with Crimson Fury. So, yes, they're fun to drive around with, but in actual practicality and in matches, they are not fun at all, and they are very difficult. So, sadly, for me, I'm going to have to put Crimson Fury in the D tier. Next up is Darkseid, and Darkseid in this game is insanely powerful, because ram damage in general does a lot of heavy lifting here, just like in TM2. Ram damage essentially is like an extra special for every character. I think even Mr. Grimm can do some ram damage in this game, which is crazy to say. But speaking of Dollface / Darkseid, yeah, they are crazy. They have technically 4 specials if you think of it this way. So the first special is their typical ram, like in TM Black. Where you hit the button, it gives you a speed boost, and you do extra damage for your ram. It's really fun to use. Their second special is a Gatling gun that comes out of the top. And if you hold down the special button, you can continuously start shooting more and more bullets as the time goes on until you run out of ammo with the Gatling gun, doing a decent amount of damage if you're near somebody. It's also very helpful if someone's behind you and you don't just want to turn around and smash them with your front end. The third special is these 6, I think it's 6, it's either 4 or 6 balls that are in the back of your vehicle, and you use them as mines. You drop them behind you, people run into them, and it does a lot of damage. Again, very useful if someone's chasing you, and it's kind of interesting that Darkseid gets 3 versions of their special. And then the last part, and this is why I'm considering it a 4th version, is if you just use Turbo and you just run into somebody. Darkseid does so much ram damage in this game, you can pretty much kill Grimm in 1 hit, even without using your special. They are that powerful. And then of course, on top of using your ram damage with Darkseid, they're also strong because of their armor. They can take a ton of hits. They are pretty much just as strong as Warthog or Sweet Tooth in terms of their armor, and they are also not very sluggish. I mean, they are sluggish compared to other cars, of course, but for me, when I'm playing as Darkseid in other games, especially TM Black, I'm used to them being very slow at turning and very slow at accelerating, and I don't feel that way in 2012. It might just be me, I don't know. But Darkseid feels pretty damn quick and pretty damn maneuverable, especially for being a semi, which is just really funny to say. So truthfully, I don't really have any downsides to using Darkseid. I think they are, in my opinion, the best character in the game, and that's why Darkseid is going to be given my prestigious S tier. Next up is Death Warrant. I talked about them a little bit earlier when we were talking about Roadkill. And essentially, they're the same character as Roadkill in this game. They have the same amount of speed, maybe a little faster. I think Death Warrant is a little quicker. They have the same amount of armor, maybe a little less armor than Roadkill, but it's pretty neck and neck. And the same special weapon, which is the Gatling gun. And then you also have the second version of it where you can charge it up and get these blood missiles or zoomy missiles, whatever you want to call them, to be added to the Gatling gun to do extra damage. The biggest difference with Death Warrant compared to Roadkill is the special weapon recharges twice as fast. At least it feels it does. It feels like it does. On top of that, it doesn't do as much damage as Roadkill, so it makes sense that it recharges quicker. So it's kind of a give or take. Do you want a little bit of a faster vehicle that can have a special more often, but do less damage and take less hits versus Roadkill? That's kind of the biggest differences between the two. I just wish there was more creativity. I wish they would have a more special weapon than Roadkill so that differentiates them a little bit more. But I do love the design of their character. I like the color. I like the color scheme. And they are fun to play as just like Roadkill. So I normally would put them in the B tier category because they're pretty much the same version as Roadkill. However, I prefer Roadkill a little bit more because of the extra armor they have and the extra damage their special weapon does, even if I have to wait a little bit longer to use it. So because of that, I'm going to put Death Warrant in the C tier category. Next up is Juggernaut. This is another brand new character to the Twisted Metal series. I don't know if I said that before with Death Warrant, but they also are brand new, by the way. But Juggernaut is the bigger, badder version of Darkseid, basically. They have a giant trailer connected to them on top of being just a semi. They can take a massive amount of hits. They have the most armor in the entire game by far. Their special weapon is they have these mines that pop out of both sides, and you can drop them behind you or send them flying forward. It kind of reminds me of Manslaughter in Twisted Metal Black in a lot of ways, and they do relatively the same amount of damage as Manslaughter did back in the day. And if you can get direct hits to those mines, they are extremely deadly, or you can just ram people. That's like his third special, just like Darkseid's. But Juggernaut's is broken in this game. Like, if you ram Mr. Grimm, he's dead. If you ram Kamikaze, they're dead. If you ram really anybody, you can send them flying out of the game to their death. It is absolutely hilarious and very fun to play as Juggernaut. The biggest issue with him is his sluggish speed and handling. He is a pain in the ass to control in this game. The only benefit is you can kind of get a little bit of speed, start sliding or drifting, and just whiplash the back trailer to hit somebody and send them flying out of the game and doing a ton of damage. That is the major benefit of using Juggernaut. He's a lot of fun. He's very interesting. I applaud them for actually adding a giant trailer truck to be a playable character. Yeah, I never expected that playing this game that he'd actually be a playable character, but here he is. But in my opinion, because of the trailer weighing him down, making him a lot more sluggish to play as, making him just not as fun as Darkseid, he is going to be lowered down to an A tier category. Next up is Junkyard Dog, which, by the way, I have to applaud the guys over at Eat Sleep Play for literally fixing Junkyard Dog from TM Black for me. I actually like him in this game. He's actually decent. And he does, I think, what he was originally supposed to do in TM Black, but for some reason they just didn't get around to doing it, where his special weapon actually throws vehicles at people instead of just a regular gas can situation like we got in TM Black. So the fact that you can throw vehicles is really funny. It does a decent amount of damage if you get a direct hit, but you can also make it explode on command, so you can get a radius amount of damage to multiple people, which is really cool. And you can also switch it to a separate type of vehicle that creates an explosion of fire to do even more damage. But the only difference with that one is it's less accurate, at least from my experience. But yeah, he's a lot of fun to play as. I don't mind Junkyard Dog in this game, really. The only downside to him is his sluggish speed and handling. He has decent armor, of course, this time around, just like he did in Black, and his special weapon is still very fun. The only thing with his special weapon that I will say is a bummer is I do wish it did a little bit more damage. It should have done the same amount of damage as Meat Wagons when it gets a direct hit, especially with the fire version. The fact that it doesn't, I'm going to have to lower it below Meat Wagon and put him in the B tier category. And last but not least is Kamikaze. Again, brand new vehicle to the Twisted Metal series. I like their design. I like that they're a little tiny vehicle, kind of like Microblast and TM4. Obviously not that small, but you know what I'm getting. Just a very small, compact vehicle that's very fast and easy to maneuver, and a lot of fun to kind of run through very tight scenarios and get away from the action if need be. But they're sadly not as fast as Crimson Fury. Crimson Fury is still quicker, which is kind of funny, and they relatively have the same special weapon as Crimson Fury as well. Again, kind of leading me back to that lack of creativity, which is a big bummer. The only difference is that their second version of their special, instead of a shockwave of fire, it's kind of the opposite. It's like a shockwave of freeze to make everybody stall for a good like 3 or 4 seconds. It is very helpful in races during the single player campaign, but in the actual battle, it doesn't really help all that much because you can use regular freezes whenever you need to in the heat of battle. So you normally just use their flamethrower, which again, isn't super strong. I mean, it is if you can get all of it to hit one person, but 9 times out of 10, most characters are so fast in this game, that's just not going to happen. And the other thing too is you can also shoot these like fireballs with your flamethrower to do a little bit extra damage from a distance, which is nice to see, but it just doesn't do as much damage as it should. It's kind of like a remake version of Thumper Special from Twisted Metal Head On, if you will. But their biggest issue, of course, is their armor. They're extremely weak. You can kill them in like 2 hits with Darkseid, and it's just a bummer. It's like their specials should have been way stronger than they are, and the fact that they're not very strong and you have to pretty much be right up next to somebody to do damage with their special makes them just a nuisance to play as. They're only fun if you're playing the races because you have that speed and handling needed to complete them without much issue. So for me, they are a C tier category. So that is it. That is finally my ranking for the cars/characters of Twisted Metal 2012, aka Twisted Metal on PS3. I know this ranking was pretty harsh. I didn't add too many people this time in the A and S tier category. Again, I only wanted one character to make it all the way up to the prestigious S tier, but I kind of feel this is my perception of the game overall. It is a heavily based B tier game. There's a lot of great things that they did with 2012, a lot of ambition that got added, a lot of creativity, but in the end, it does feel rushed in a lot of ways when playing it single player, and it's just the characters, especially the new ones that they added, just didn't have that amount of creativity and long-lasting appeal that every other character in the series has always had. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed my tier list. Always remember that my opinion does not matter. If you do not agree with my tier list, that is totally fine, and that is completely your opinion. If you want to make your own tier list, again, the link will be in the description below. Make sure to post yours in the community Discord or the comment section below as well. And if you like the video overall, leave a like to show your support, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. Before we head out, I want to give a huge special thank you to our channel members. These are amazing people who are wanting to support the channel and the content here. And if you want to do the same, you can click the little join button underneath every single new upload. And in becoming a channel member not only supports me and the channel, but also gives you a ton of perks in doing so, including early access to new content and being a part of exclusive polls and information that other people would not be able to access. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you again so much for the love and support, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out.